Welcome to Blind Shovel, an arts and music podcast. Today I had the pleasure of speaking to Al Gofa, a very dynamic cartoonist who currently has a Kickstarter up for his new comic, Orc Gym. I recommend you check that out and hope you enjoy the podcast. Yo.
You can hear me?
We did it.
Oh man, I'm so sorry. Dude, it's just like nonstop. I never felt like so less in control in my whole life. Like nothing works since like 3 weeks or a month. It's like, anyway, I'm really sorry about that.
It's fine. I don't really like when people apologize, honestly.
Oh, you don't like it? Well,
No.
I mean, yeah, I guess you don't apologize when you have to.
I don't apologize much. It's one of my flaws. Yeah. People don't like it. I apologize when I intentionally do something wrong, but not when like some chaotic element makes me appear to have done something wrong.
Right.
It's not a great trait, but we can move on.
Well, it's cool. It kind of says that like you're more accepting of like chaos in life. I guess it says something about me not being accepting of others. If you were as chaotic as I am right now, I might be less nice than you were. I'll be like, yeah, well, you should be sorry.
Well, yeah, I don't want to make you feel that, but also you might just be more empathetic. So it's not really. Yeah. So. You're Al Gofa, that pronounced right?
Yeah.
And you have a Kickstarter right now.
Right.
Is that right?
Well, we've put the sign up link online, and it should be available for people to like buy it in February. So right now, people can just like sign to it.
Is this your first time doing Kickstarter, or is this something you do often?
No, it's not. It's my fourth one, kind of. Yeah.
And so you like it?
I don't know. I think no, it's a lot of work. And like, I don't think I have the entrepreneur profile that much. It's just like I'm in the 21st century, and I live in Montreal, so I have to figure out ways to reach out to people. But it's always more work than you expect. There's always more emails than you think, and always more problem with the bank than you think, and stuff like that. Yeah.
But I've never even thought about it, but it looks like, I don't know what happened here. You got gamma twinkles.
Yeah.
Did that happen?
No, it didn't happen. Yeah. Well, yeah, that was like we didn't reach the amount of money we were used to. With Dagger, we made like around 35,000, and same for Cry Punch. And then with Gamma Twinkles, we made like close to 10 or something. And with Kickstarter, you need to reach the minimum.
So what happened? It just never got made?
Yeah, no, it never got made. So I had all those people really involved starting their comics, and I had to drop them because we just never made the. Yeah, that's the complicated thing with Kickstarter, is that you're starting to ask people to work for free for a while until the campaign happens. And if it doesn't happen, well, fuck it.
That sucks. I like the image a lot. The Gamma Twinkles image. Yeah,
the logo was by my friend Pablo, and his graphic designer name is Goon. And the illustration was by my friend Maxime Gévin. And the colors were by me, so yeah.
That's a shame.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about Orc Gym while we're here.
Yeah. Well, Orc Gym is my first Kickstarter that it's only a comic by myself. The others were anthologies, and with artists I looked up to that I wanted to see a story from. But yeah, it's my baby project, Orc Gym, because it's pretty much all my interests in one comic. So like muscles and orcs and mother heads, pretty much. So it's going to be a lot of like gambling and drug addiction and weightlifting and
these are your interests.
Well, in comics, yeah. In real life, I actually don't do any of them, but I find them they're my fetish that I like to see in a movie or a comic.
Speaking of fetish, I just looked up Orc Gym, and there is some very strange CG rendering porn of orcs in gym. Have you seen these?
No, I haven't.
Oh my God. Yeah, you should check those out.
I think I've never Googled Orc Gym, actually.
It's fucking crazy. Yeah, you might want to do that.
Yeah, I'll look like what's already up there, so to see if I should take a shot.
Not what I was expecting. But I guess there's porn of everything.
Right. Yeah, there's probably is. Yeah.
So in this story, Orc Gym.
Yeah.
We talked about it in the past.
Right.
But we got to get into it again. So it's like a manager of a gym. He's an orc. Everyone's an orc, right?
Right.
And he's
so it's on this island where which is part of a bigger country and just of orcs. And that island is known for all orcs are like pretty much like weightlifting, but some are obviously more invested in it. And that island is like the epitome of bodybuilders in among the orcs. So there's this contest over there. But on that island and other area, but it's not important exactly. Like I'm not exploring the whole country. Mm-hmm. But lords are also gym managers. So it's like
right as a feudal.
Sure. Yeah.
Got you.
So we follow Mango Mangolo, who's really, really obsessed with bodybuilding, but not that much about gym managing. So his gym is kind of falling apart, and he has friends who have addiction, so he's trying to deal with them and stuff like that.
And how fleshed out is the world? Like, how long do you think you can live in this world?
Well, my story is like 200 page, 5 issues of 40 page each. And obviously I could like do like other stories with other orcs later on. I don't know if it will happen, but yeah, it's a world that like, it's like, I could actually like just at one point make a story with elves and like maybe they could pass by that city. It's just like, but yeah, so far the story is pretty much essentially just about this specific gym, and I don't think I'll explore this specific gym again after that story.
Okay, got you. No, it's just interesting to me. Sometimes when you get into a comic, you can imagine being there very long, or you can imagine it's just like a brief stay, like the world that you're creating. I don't know how much you draw outside of the world. That's like what I would say is like, character design and exploring concepts that aren't directly used in the book. I imagine you do that quite a bit though, right?
Well, yeah, actually you're bringing up an interesting subject because I feel like I'm influenced by those two kind of storytelling. There's a part of me who like what like those epic sagas like Lord of the Rings and Star Wars do, of having all those characters. And one of my main influences is like those 80s covers for films. Like the film is actually the opposite. It's like a really short story with like 1 or 2 characters, one building, things happen there, and you don't imagine like more to it. But the cover is the exact opposite. It's like you feel like you're buying a whole saga just by renting that VHS tape. I don't know how it happened, but most illustration in the 80s, like they will even like take the smallest, not important character in the film and make it like cool and badass on the cover, so you feel it's an important other character.
Right. It's essentially deception, but it's like a cool one. I thought you meant for a second, there's also those posters from different parts of the world that are just completely like incorrectly interpreting films.
Yeah, those are hilarious.
Those are great too. Those are more noble in some sense. There's something weird about fluffing up a film that is garbage with like some really dramatic imagery.
Yeah.
But I get that. Yeah, no, I thought when you mentioned the 2 ways that, because I see 2 ways where it's like you draw your way through a comic page by page and you don't even know where it's going, which is usually how I would make work. or you build this whole world around it and then the story emerges within it, like Lord of the Rings or something. Obviously not a comic, but the amount of effort, for me, it's almost like an efficiency thing, if I'm being honest. When I was younger, I just wanted to make as many books as possible. So I didn't want to be drawing outside of the actual comic that much, but there's a great benefit to doing that.
Right. I hear you. Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I've tried all approaches that I can come up with because I never feel like just one way is like answering to all my needs as an artist and as an individual. Some are more exhausting than others. But ultimately, when I did my first big book, Dark Angel of Darkness, I didn't know where I was going at all. Like, I had a feel, I had like, of course, of like what I wanted visually, but like I was just building one page after another, hoping it works out. And I think it kind of works out, but like it's not my ideal comics. So with time, I start thinking more about what I like about the story and like what comic books are possible for me to do. So to come back to the two type of stories you mentioned earlier, like I kind of see them a lot in action movies, like especially old action movies, like they don't have a lot of budget or special effects, so it's not like Avengers or Matrix. It's more like, oh, there's this, like, I don't know, like a John Carpenter movie, Assault on Precinct 13, stuff like that. Like these kind of movies like inspire me in terms of story structure now, because it's just comforting for me. I'm like, okay, this is what it's about. I know where I'm going. And it allows you to pass more time with your characters, the environment. So it feels actually more rich for me, more inspiring. But at the same time, I come from this other background where when I was a kid, I really loved a Star Wars movie or a Lord of the Rings movie. So I kind of want to give a feeling there is a bit of like, there could be another story with other characters of that world. Like,
yeah, no, I understand that completely. Well, things you like are different than the things you make. I think you can make things passionately that you might not even like. And maybe that's like a perverse orientation. Probably is. Like, you should probably want to read your own comics, But I don't know if that's always true for people. There is the idea that you make what the world is missing from your perspective. But then there's the idea of you just make what you can make because you're capable of making it. And obviously the latter is a weak position. In some ways, the next book should always challenge you to do something you thought you couldn't do, I think.
Right.
Maybe this is an overly heroic view of making comics, though.
Well, I definitely fit in the first one. And like, I'm not saying it's a good or a bad thing. That's always been my reflex. I will go in a bookstore and I will see a book that I find interesting, but not perfect. I will suddenly want to make that version of it. So obviously I won't do it because it takes forever to make a comic book, but I always had that very competitive approach of challenging myself and being influenced by the others.
Right, which seems like the masculine is runs through the work. The same is true for me, and I don't use masculine or feminine with derogatory implications. That's a disease of modernity. The way people speak as if like saying the comic is masculine is a bad thing. But it seems to me, yeah, you like speed, muscles, action, brotherhood, competition,
right,
violence,
right,
stark line work. I feel like these all, black and white even for me is like this. There's something really bold and macho about it.
Right. No, I agree.
Well, and you're also making a book about weightlifting, which, so you're like on some Frazetta shit where, like, if I recall correctly, you too are weightlifting now. And what I loved about him is like he kind of wanted to be what he made. So his work had an aspirational element. He wasn't like some blob of a man, He was actively working towards being his ideal.
Yeah, he is inspiring in that way. he looked great too. I think he was in really good shape. I see him. I just want to make him as a main character for one of my story. And yeah, I did. It always, like, I mean, it's without judgment, but it always surprised me when I see like a comic book artist who like draws muscle every day, and then you see him on his chair and he's super fat, and like you never raise weight, never lift weight, and it's fine. I mean, but like I feel like they're disconnected from their artwork at some extent. Like,
well, they are, because experientially, you can draw something from the outside, or you can draw it from the outside or the inside out, where like you've done it, and so you know what it feels like. And so you have more knowledge of what weightlifting is like if you do it than if you just watch someone do it.
Right.
So it is an inferior position, I think, in so much as it's doable. Obviously, you can draw things that are impossible.
Yeah.
And there's no expected realism. But even if you want to draw like a cat, you should probably watch a cat for at least 3 hours before you do that, you know?
Yeah. Well, you know, like Hayao Miyazaki, like when it's a transportation scene, when like they drive a car, like it's so believable. You can't find more believable than that in animation. And the guy actually loved cars. He liked airplanes, and like he drove them, and like he did fly them. So it's like you can tell he's like, he want to share you what it's like to be in a small airplane where the screws are unscrewing because it's so small. Like, and I've been in a small airplane and it felt like a Miyazaki movie. It's just like,
well, he also goes out of his way to drive the 2CV, which is in so many, that's in Castle Cagliostro. And because you're French, you can pronounce this word better than me, but Citroën, 2CV, that's the car company. Okay. Yeah.
I'm not a carist, but I don't know much.
You would know it. It's just like the car he draws.
Yeah.
And he like stubbornly, I think he might still drive that car. He's driven that car for decades. And that relationship between reality and fantasy is always interesting, where, I don't know, it has to be the bedrock of the work, I think, in some ways.
Well, I mean, of course you can't like get through. Like, I mean, if I have to do a comic and there's a car in it, like I don't even have a driving license. I'm not just gonna stop my comic and like driving classes and like buy a car so I can keep doing my comic. But anyway, it's not really important because that's not what my story is about. So, but it's just like, it has to be about something that you care and know about, like to some extent. Otherwise, your comic will feel empty and like just illustration hanging one to each other, side by side. And most superhero muscle comics feels like that. Like they don't really like, the action is not really believable and the pose are not really believable. Not that they're not academically good, but it's just like, I don't feel as much love than from someone who actually like experience it and care.
Well, further odd might be the idea that the people reading the book might have a type of relationship to their body that's also not very like idealistic. Like I don't imagine I mean, it's true that some like macho dudes read a comic book with macho things in it. But it is always interesting to consider the audience, like what things attract and whether people are living vicariously through the machismo of like a Marvel DC thing, or if they see it as a place that they should aspire to be, like they should be like Superman, who's ultimately just like seems like a Christian dude or something with superpowers. But whereas Batman feels a lot different to me. But as to whether or not it's like this vicarious thing or this inspirational thing, I think that's interesting.
Yeah, well, the truth is also is that they're not just muscles, like they're also like individuals. So you like, I guess sometimes readers just like kind of like don't pay attention to everything the comic offers. Like I certainly don't. So like maybe like you read a Batman comics not for his anatomically impressive features and athletic skills. You read him because he's like sad and lonely or something. And yeah.
No, totally. It's kind of simplistic to look at it from that perspective. It's just the entry point. But that gets me to like
entry point. I think there are muscles first, then there are the things.
Yeah, it's the superficial details that tend to pull people into art first, and then you can create depth. But in terms of like your experience with weightlifting, what has that been like?
Yeah, well, at first I did mostly like what everybody does, just like finding one or two easy answers online and thinking I figured it all. So after not a lot of improvement and just actually starting to really enjoy it, I bought a Bruce Lee bodybuilding book and a Arnold Schwarzenegger bodybuilding book, and those were really fun.
How different are those philosophies? They seem so different to me.
Yeah, they are very different. But what was fun about actually reading a whole book from like someone from another era who really care is that like you can feel to some extent that like they were really open to be wrong about what they're saying, and that this is just like them exploring and like discovering things, even if sometimes they practically talk in absolute. Like it's a book, so at other points it feels like they're open. It's very different than like just like learning something through a Instagram post that will says this is the way. Because like you like, I mean, I've hang out pages and pages with those two guys by reading their whole book, and they're pretty much like diaries. And so that was kind of mind opening. It kind of made me more flexible about my opinions on bodybuilding, and really helped me like feeling more free and comfortable and try things myself. And at one point, I figured the way to train for myself, and then I start seeing a lot of improvement. Yeah.
And that's something you do regularly?
Well, I stopped the last month, but I used to. Yeah, I stopped because I have too much work, and it's not a good month for me. But yeah, I've been doing it like 4 or 5 times a week for like 2 years, and I'm gonna keep doing it.
And I assume there's like the aesthetics of Bruce Lee are very different than Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
So I assume you have like a kind of honed in proportionality that you seek to see or make within yourself or draw.
Yeah, a little, but I'm not as creative as them. Like they have very precise opinion of what they want. Like mine are not as precise as them. But yeah, of course, like I look at my body sometimes like, oh, I could see like a bit more of that there. But yeah, I'm not aspiring to Schwarzenegger level of size. I'm not aspiring to that. I want to look like a normal citizen when I have a t-shirt.
Yeah. Does the book kind of approach these two? I mean, I know there's more than that in terms of, I don't know the history of bodybuilding much, but obviously Schwarzenegger and Lee seem quite different. But does the book get into that?
Yeah, a little, of course. Yeah, well, bodybuilding, Schwarzenegger is like, of course, he's like, how do you say that in English? He's more than an icon. He's the first person you check to. He's an ambassador. He's an ambassador for bodybuilding. And it's you know, he was on steroid, of course, and they're all on steroid. And it's like, to them, is to look as heroic as possible. And the history of where that kind of body, like did it appear in painting and fiction before it appeared in real life? I don't really know. I feel it kind of come together. It appeared at the same time. But
well, there's a luxury to being shaped like Arnold Schwarzenegger because it doesn't have practical utility in some ways. No. It seems to me like, you know, if you had to work, it just seems like civilization wasn't ready for people to put 10 hours a day into sculpting their bodies, regardless of the function, until modernity, which, because it's an art form, it's a luxury, it's an aesthetic practice.
Right.
I don't even know if Arnold Schwarzenegger would be that useful, like working for 10 hours a day as a contractor or something.
Yeah.
Which is kind of odd.
Yeah. Well, when you listen to those people in interviews, like, they're so obsessed and passionate about it. For them, it's a really glorious moment when they're on the stage and flex their biceps. And so, yeah, it is 100% a luxury. And it's like, to them, it's an art form. There's no doubt about it to them. And I mean, I feel it. I mean, it is an art form. I mean, I am inspired by them. It's just like, I think it's another level to actually do it and like be on stage and live it. That's a life that to me sounds completely inaccessible. But Bruce Lee, like, I mean, he was an obsessed bodybuilder too. He is considered a bodybuilder by many, but he was also a martial artist and an ambassador of kung fu movies. So his preoccupations are more oriented towards having an efficient body. So of course he's smaller.
Yes, to me, a far more beautiful shape.
Yeah, it's more my type too.
Well, I'd rather be that. Maybe that's the aspect of it. I'd much rather be Bruce Lee than Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah.
But I'll never be either, very likely. But in this kind of time we live in, where people supposedly think every work of art has to cater to or be digestible by every supposed category of people, do you care that you make books that, especially like Orc Gym, like I feel like only dudes would read or boys would read?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do them for myself, and I'm not everyone, so
exactly. Yeah.
Well, that's pretty much like, it's hard to not be influenced by others and like what's of your time. So of course I'm like, I do ask myself those questions, but in the end, it stops to what I feel like doing. So
yeah, no, that's a great answer in the sense, like, you know, I don't think people understand how much of a sacrifice it is to make art, and then to ask an artist to basically have like a Disney boardroom in their head, thinking about like quotas and checking off this, and it's basically like they want you to be a maximal capitalist about who it appeals to, and right. It actually defeats the whole point of making something. And also to try to tell artists what they need to make and who needs to like it is just preposterous, I think. Right. I only ask because in a lot of ways my books, I think, are probably read by males far more than females, probably like 80-20. And if I wanted to make something that appealed to a female, I don't even think I could do it. I don't. Yeah. I have 4 brothers. I don't know. It's hard for me. Like, I don't know. I have limitations. Do I have to turn into some amorphous blob that vaguely understands every position? Or should I just make a thing that's actually, you know, what I am and potent, and people can like it or not like it?
Yeah, I think it's possible to like go out of our way to like do empathic exercise and get in somebody's mind, but it has to be sincere. Like, so it's like, it's not because Twitter tell me to do it that I'm gonna do it. But a good example of that is Roman Polanski. He was like sexually like unstoppable. You wouldn't like. We heard so many stories about him. He just like he was not a monogamic man, you know. Mm-hmm. And then he did Rosemary's Baby, which is probably the most opposite opinion, most feminist movie you can do to Roman Polanski. And that was a censor take from him. He tried to like, for a moment in his life, he tried to like not be him. And it's a really good movie.
It is. He also like, didn't he have to flee the country for
yeah
sex with a minor?
I haven't read those, but I think like he pretty much like slept with a minor.
Oh, I think like a 13-year-old or something crazy. But yeah, I mean, self-denial is interesting, right? Because I could hear the people making the opposite argument that there's some virtue in denying yourself and trying to make work for a larger social good. Like you're saying, Polanski's going against his impulse, and then he makes something great. And it's super complicated. I think self-denial has to really, again, come from a genuine place, like you put it.
Yep.
Not because, first of all, if it's marketing, it's kind of what we're talking about in a different way. This is social currency.
Yeah.
It often just doesn't even resonate with the people it's intended for. And I see this in a lot of Disney films now. I actually went to the movies. I know movies influence your work quite a bit, to see Darren Aronofsky's The Whale. And the trailers were just like so obviously ideological and just propaganda. And then The Whale was actually quite nuanced. Like, it's being attacked on both sides for opposing offenses, which apparently is now the marker of good art, it seems, if both sides of the political spectrum hate you at the same time.
Well, like trends and marketing always existed. Like, it's just like a lot of them, like, we don't really notice them because they're from another era. But then, so trailer is always like the worst version of what a film is. And so yeah, most films, like they use those, even like a movie from the 30s, and it's just like, but like, you don't look, it's like people complaining that John Wayne is too masculinist. Yeah, but John Wayne is in one part masculinist, but he's a lot of other parts. Look at all his movies and look, he's more than that. He's more than that simple idea you made. So it's the same for the movies we get today with the trailers. Like, if you take the time with those movies and TV shows, they'll be more than that. So
maybe I have a cynical view of modern film mostly.
I don't really watch them actually. I
can't help but be pulled towards like an analysis of what's going on through them. It's a bad habit because you should always have a positive orientation to what you're doing. I think and by that I mean not like some hippie-ish delusion about the utopic world, but you should work on what you want to see more in the world, not be anti something.
Right.
Because when you're anti something, you become it. Typically, you just become what you hate. Yeah. Because you focus on it.
Yeah.
But there is also another thing with modern trailers where they tell you the whole movie. And if you look at older trailers, they completely do not do that. They don't even, they're just there to be a kind of hook, a worm on the hook to catch you. Nowadays, it seems like people are so scared of unexpected things, they have to watch a trailer that shows them the whole movie, and then they'll go see it. And that's like mind-blowing to me, but it speaks to a kind of fearful society that can't deal with a surprise in any way.
Yeah, it's true that church changed a lot, but I always wonder, like, when you get interested in all these change in what is in a trailer, what's on the web, what's in the TV show and stuff. Mm-hmm. Like, is it really the people asking for that, or is the producers doing that, or is it a bit of both? It's just like who decided that trailers will suddenly really suck? Like, who decided that? Like, how did it happen? Like,
yeah, I think it's relational and it's technological.
Yeah.
And I understand the people in this world who want to be the most efficient in terms of money, social clout, etc. That's kind of the appeal of making comic books. They're essentially obsolete, and there's a purity to obsolete things.
Yeah.
That was certainly the draw for me, and the control freak element, where like you can control every element, whereas when you make a film, there's so much that can go wrong.
Oh yeah, no, that's the number one reason. Like, you do comics, I think, for most people, because like, even if you love art, like, and love to draw, which is my case, like, and that, like, really, if I'm honest with myself, like, what's the only real reason I'm not doing film right now? Oh, it's because it's a fucking huge job. It's like, that's it.
So you would be a filmmaker in an ideal world?
Yeah, where I will also be like playing in the Bulls in Chicago. Like,
you'd be on the Chicago Bulls and making films in the 90s Chicago Bulls.
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Well, the 90s basketball, it kind of is the height of almost the feminine and masculine in basketball. There was true elegance and style, and there was brutality. And it's kind of the appeal of hockey to me too, is like, there's this real balance of those energies where there's men, basically ballerinas, or not ballerinas, but ice skaters, who slam into each other at full speed and fight.
Right.
And that's like poetry to me. If you diminish the masculine and the feminine in a work or in a sport, you get nothing. And that's where we're heading. Like in hockey, you're not even allowed to fight as much anymore. And it ruins the dynamic.
Right.
So I think oftentimes artists exude that confusion and potency because they're dealing with these two forces in like a hermaphroditic way, almost, like spiritually speaking.
Yeah.
I don't know if you feel that way.
Yeah, no, I understand where you're coming from with all that, and I always felt like Japan was really good for that in their art. But yeah, in sport too. Like, I mean, I watch basketball like still today. I've watched LeBron James on his birthday. He did like 43 points. It was pretty great.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, like LeBron James is like kicking their ass right now. Well, on that game that night because like pretty much the guy couldn't DM. Like they had to like do like that, like and just wait for him to pass. Like because like I'm not saying he's not strong. I'm sure LeBron James would make a lot of points in the 90s, but like at least the guy could like DM a bit. So
yeah. And in that respect, I mean that's just a reverence for excellence, you know. And what's interesting about sports is when someone's excellent, it's objective. Of course, there's team-based elements that kind of obscure that a little bit, but I think the appeal sometimes as an artist watching a sport is it's so objective. People win and lose. Players are either effective and they aren't. And sometimes when you make a comic book that's, especially an underground comic, you have a hard time knowing if you succeeded or failed. I mean, you can look at likes or you can look at the money coming in, which isn't coming in usually.
Yeah.
Or you can look at from your own metrics, but when you judge something strictly on your own metrics, you get in trouble because like you can get lazy pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. It's the only metric I have. Well, I have my own, of course, but other than my own is like, like Glenn Murakami, like this guy who was an adult working on Batman animated when I was like 10 years old and watching Batman animated. Well, he bought my comics. And
that's cool.
Yeah, so that's my metric. I'm like, well, this guy loves Alex Toth. I love Alex Toth. He considers my work. I must be doing good. Like, but that's pretty much.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's what I try to emphasize sometimes is like, it isn't about getting to this fake place where you don't give a shit about anyone's opinion and you don't care about how many likes something gets. It's about getting to a place where you only care about the opinion of people you respect. And there's probably only like a handful of people in that equation.
Yeah.
And if you can make them respect you and vice versa and keep growing with those people, even if they're, like you've never met them in some ways, that is what is needed to sustain a career, I believe.
Yeah, well, at least feel like you're relevant, like, because I don't know what your career will look like, but at least you feel like you're doing something right.
Yeah, relevant in the sense of it's just about, it's kind of like checking that impulse. And I'm not sure either of us have this where you could just make a bad drawing and say to yourself, it's good. Right. But the only way it isn't is kind of imagining those other people judging it or actually sending it to them.
Yeah.
Which I try to maintain with my two friends is like sending, work good and bad frequently to each other. Because once you get out of college or university, you end up at best with social media, and that's not a very critical format. Like either people hate your shit for ideological reasons or they just like it to be nice, but no one's sitting there and like commenting, oh, you could kind of do this composition a bit better here and there.
Yeah. Well, I used to be in a comic book studio and, well, not a studio, but a place like where people were renting tables. And the few talents that were there were really helpful for me.
How long ago was that?
Well, that's been like maybe 4 years now. But yeah, I guess from like 2015 to 2019.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was that in Montreal?
Yeah, I was in a studio that was organized by Vincent Giard, which is a very, very talented artist. He's like one of my favorite artists, if not my favorite artist.
How do you spell that?
Vincent, Vincent, and Giard, Giard. He's very right now. He's like not present on the web, and he kind of stopped doing comics. But when he was doing them, I thought he was like brilliant. He was like a mix of like Spirou and Gus Gofa. It was just like you could do like drawings that look so easy, but that were like, really like exactly what you want from a drawing.
Well, yeah, they're quite beautiful.
So him,
are you friends with him?
Yeah, we're friends. We see each other a few times, once in a while, not often. But
and he just stopped making drawings or comics.
Yeah, now he's a art director for a poetry book publisher.
Oh, he sounds fascinating.
Yeah,
I should talk to him.
Yeah, you should. I don't know if you would. He's not even online, but yeah.
Huh. Yeah. So you had that group of people, but you said it's been like 3 years.
Yeah, I was in that studio for 3 years. Then I went to a studio alone with Connor Williamson, which was really fun because he's the best.
Oh, he's amazing.
Yeah.
Wait, where? So does he live in?
He lives in Montreal, but now he moved in Greece. But he lived in Montreal for like 10 years.
Oh, I had no idea.
Yeah.
So you've got a good, real, strong group, or you had down there. Up there.
Yeah, I mean, I was surprised because I don't consider Quebec and Montreal like a place of talent for visual arts. Most people, the average level is, to me, inexistent. Like it's just like, but there were these few guys that were like absolutely my favorite artists, actually like living in the same district than me. I'm just like, okay, cool, it's happening.
Wow. Did that period push you?
Yeah, it motivated me to do my first zine, Chevalier Bataille, which means Knight and Battles, which is a black and white 30-page comic, and then Dark Angel of Darkness. And yeah, afterwards I've been trying publishing, and I'm back with Orc Gym. But yeah, those two guys and a few others, really talented guys too. Dogs Understand, he makes video games. He's nice. Really good too.
And how have you kind of recreated that? Have you recreated that feeling?
No, I felt really lonely right now. I'm at home in front of my computer, always trying to like connect with people, trying to like make money, trying to find contracts, not drawing much. It's very not fun, and it's I'm kind of gaining from it, kind of winning what I'm supposed to win from that, like starting to get more connection, more contracts. So. So maybe soon I'll just like go back in the studio, try to catch those guys, put them in the same room, and like let's do art.
Yeah, but I assume it's kind of. It sounds like, I don't know. Are you in your 30s?
Yeah, I'm 33. Yeah.
Oh right. We were once the same age. Not anymore. But it's super hard in your 30s to keep that connection with others. People's lives get realer and realer and split off, and the kind of practical reality of having to make money can certainly end certain people's careers, understandably. That's the real challenge of the 30s, I think.
Yeah.
It's kind of all the things at once, all the problems at once come back to you, especially if your 20s were not very focused on them.
Yeah, they were not focused at all. My early 20s, I was just partying all the time.
Oh yeah? Are you a hedonistic person?
Yeah. Until like maybe 25. I got tendonitis for 3 years. So that kind of calmed me down.
Because of your sins?
Yeah.
You were punished?
Exactly.
Oh, so you have a party animal inside of you.
Well, I haven't seen him for a long time, but yeah, he's there somewhere.
Wow.
Yeah, I guess I express him when I play basketball or push weight.
It's hard to be a party animal and make comics. It's not a good combination.
No, they don't fit together.
But we don't get these choices. That's a real thing. Like, maturity is just sacrificing certain aspects of your actual personality. Yeah. It's all it is. And people who are unwilling to do that just fall apart.
Right.
I didn't understand that for the longest time, but choosing which ones to get rid of is the hard part. It's almost like, and as you add children, it's almost like you have to just keep lobbing off certain parts of your body, certain personality traits.
I like it. Should make a comic about that.
I think, yeah, it's already made. That's a problem. It's like you can see it, right? We already made it right there.
Right.
It's about whether or not you want to give it in a more tangible way. Because daydreaming is pretty satisfying.
On the short term, I guess. Like
No, it you know what? It's not sufficient because there's not enough suffering associated with it. If you don't suffer, it doesn't work. I just feel like that's the one appealing thing about comics is suffering is almost guaranteed, and that makes it an intimate process. There's like that sadomasochistic relationship that emerges.
Yeah, it's funny. I used to dislike that idea somehow because I think I was lying to myself. I wanted to feel like, you don't have to suffer. You just have to find the proper process. And but then I realized that no, I'm suffering. There's so much things that are beyond my control. But
yeah.
But I like it now. Not because like I've become consciously sadomasochist, but just because you need to learn to like it to keep doing it.
I think what happened, I used to be in the same place. I get it. It's like it's a convenient position. You want to be able to make good or great things without any type of downside. And that's impossible. And then once you realize like you're going to submit to something in life, that's a guarantee. If you have the luxury of picking what that thing is, you're a lucky person. And if the thing you pick is your craft, you're even luckier. Most people don't even have that choice, especially throughout history.
You're right.
And so submitting to a pen and ink in comics, this is a great life. And you can see that with Miyazaki, right? Like he's like tormented, but ultimately he's making beautiful cartoons.
Yeah.
He's not at war. He's not in prison. Yeah. I have almost no sympathy for artists that complain at this point in my life. It's a blessing, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. I like the way you put it. It's inspiring.
I hope so. I mean, if you're in your 30s and you're still making work, I think you've probably already come to these realizations, and I hope, and you've decided to push through. In your 20s, you can kind of coast off of going to school in this isolated environment and kind of lie to yourself about what happens after school is you meet other cartoonists or artists and you're like, Jesus, this person is objectively better than me. and they always will be in this way, right? Like maybe it's drawing. And I need to recognize what I'm good at. And maybe it's ideas or concepts or composition, but you can't be good at all the things. Mm-hmm. And you recognize that you'll never be Miyazaki. You'll never be your favorite artist. You'll always be dwarfed by them. But the strange, insane desire to be in the same conversation with them is what allows growth, I think.
Right.
I don't know if that's someone would describe that as like a toxic male perspective. I could see someone seeing it that way.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's just how growth happens, I think Henry Rollins talks about the beauty of weightlifting as well. Like there's just this objectivity to this bar and these weights that you pick up, and you either did it or you didn't do it, like there's no fooling yourself.
Yeah, well, the big part about a sport is like it really helped me to make art more objective in terms of not conceptually, because conceptually I already had an objective opinion, but in the practice, my own perspective of my practice. If I go play basketball and like I go throw 200 baskets and I fell half of them, well, I know I fell half of them, and while at home, like it's like so easy to just like make believe myself that I work hard, make believe myself I've done the right thing today. So I've learned to like have high standards of production and like what I consider a productive day, and like try to follow it. And
so what is a productive day?
well, a page a day.
I was gonna say I used to do a page a day, and it was, on one hand you could say, well, maybe on a lazy day I'll just make like a big splash page or something that's like real minimalist, and actually those pages kind of turn out beautiful. But as long as you have enough shame to kind of check yourself, then the page a day is a great formula. Because if you can't accept putting out a shitty page, then it's going to be fine, and you can have that objective 1 page a day metric.
Yeah,
I think that's a great, noble effort. I want to say I once read that Paul Pope like misunderstood that in Japan they were making like 5 pages a day as a certain studio he was looking at, and he thought they were talking about one person. So I think early in his career he was trying to do like 3 to 5 pages a day or something insane.
Well, we always have Jack Kirby to feel ashamed of herself, and like, but at the same time, it never worked for me because I don't think his pages are great. So I'm like, yeah, whatever.
You don't think Kirby's great?
Well, I think he's great, but like I can see how he did 10 pages a day if he did, because it's just like there's literally no compositions, and like his volumes are like more superficial than actual academic volumes. They're like, it's the idea of volume, but they're not really good volumes. And like the movement is always so like stiff, and it's always the same face and same expressions. But like I don't mind all these things. I understand why people like Kirby, and what like I like him too. But like all these things I just said, it's what takes longer for making a page. That's what makes you slower. So if you skip them all, well, I guess you can do a lot of pages.
You could probably say something about Tezuka, where it's like I don't even know how many pages that man drew in his lifetime, but yeah, it's not like the forms are spectacular. It's about, I like Kirby's drawing style more than Tezuka, but there's some Tezuka stories I really like more than a Kirby story could. I mean, except for that one Kirby with the box. What is that? Omak?
Yeah, Omak.
Omak is fucking insane. But yeah, they're after something different. And there's like a certain point in drawing a comic where I questioned if every panel needed to be a good drawing, and whether or not, like there's a lot of indie comics where so many of the drawings are so boring, and then maybe it opens up to a really cool page. But when I was drawing, I was like trying to make it's almost an anti-comics perspective. I was trying to make each panel a good drawing. And I think that can lead to an exhaustion almost of the reader in a sense as well. Like on one hand, I like the density of what you're giving someone. There's almost like an economic aspect where it's like, I don't want to waste pages. I want each panel to be a memorable image, but it's such a non-holistic approach to making a comic.
Well, yeah, I mean, in a way, we cannot do otherwise than what our pulsion, like at the end, decide for us. So, I mean, some artists like they do that and it works well for them. But yeah, of course, a lot of us will try to do it and then be like, yeah, it's not working for me. Like I'm gonna kind of lazy up that one and move on. But like if you look at like Mike Mignola, like I don't think I can find you one panel that's not extremely tight and really good.
Right, you love him, right?
Yeah, I think he's like so fucking sharp. And and it doesn't feel heavy. And I'm sure it took him a while to do every panel he drew in his whole life, but he's in the same spirit than Alex thought. And
do you feel that way about Frank Miller?
Well, no, Frank Miller is the kind of guy who like skipped a lot on the drawing and like doesn't really care if it looks good, but he has a lot of brilliant ideas and he's very creative. So he makes some pages and panels that are really gorgeous. And but at the end, once you finish DK or reading Dark Knight Returns, like you just remember the good panels and you feel like it was beautiful the whole time. And
that could be true. He is such a funky 80s. I think it's late 80s. Frank Miller is so funky and weird. It's shocking. I don't know why he comes to mind for me, but they're not the same at all. One's very tight, one's very loose. But I guess they strike me as like comic artists with clear, distinct styles.
Yeah, they're two of my favorites. They're amazing. Like they're in my top 10. Like they're great.
Do you like the Hellboy movies?
No. Well, I mean, everything that's great about Mike Mignola is not in Hellboy. I actually was repulsed by Hellboy at first. This whole like gothic, like Salem.
Sure.
And it's really not my thing. So, but then the art was just so like breathtaking. Like I mean, he will draw like a seagull like in the background, and like it will be one line, one contour line, and you will still feel the vertebra of that seagull. It's just like. It's incredible.
Yeah. No, I just wanted to take a shot at Guillermo del Toro. I just think he makes garbage films.
Oh yeah, I dislike his movies a lot too. They're boring. Yeah.
I don't even I know there's like a Pinocchio movie that came out, but it's almost like he's doing the opposite. It's like he's taking film and trying to make it like cheesy and kitsch in a comic-y way. I don't know, but it's just a complete failure to me.
Well, I think there's one aspect that's his personality, like the kitschy, comic-y kind of approach, and the other aspects is understanding of movie. Like he's like, to him, a movie is just like fetishism of things he finds beautiful. It's like, so it's like his characters are just not interesting. Like when they'll talk, they'll be saying exactly what like the perfect human being would be saying in that situation. Everybody,
it's like artificial. It's like it's like it's a film. I guess it's a film. It's not a thing that immerses you. Like in that sense, Miyazaki, I think, is grounded in life itself, the way he studies things, and you are in his films. Like, and he accomplishes something I could never accomplish. I think because he's probably more human than me, even though if he's an asshole at times, you know.
Well, he's against nepotism. That's not too bad.
Say again?
He's against nepotism? Well,
who is?
It's not like you're a filmmaker and he said, fuck that shit, you're not good enough.
Yeah. No, that's true. He's honest, but I think even he in his own books writes like he's not there to be a father, you know?
Right.
I guess he acknowledges he can only be so many things. And I think about it from the perspective of I think he had 2 sons. If he had to disappoint 2 sons to make all those beautiful films, this is a sacrifice that I'm willing to take and accept.
Yeah, well, it's hard to judge someone's life, but
of course.
And yeah, I mean, a part of me is 100% on board with you. I mean, anyway, like, I think you can be a great film. I think it's an excuse, actually. You could be a great filmmaker and a great dad, too. I don't think he has to be, like, a bad dad. It's part of who he is.
I think it is partially an excuse, but I think there's also a mania and complexity to artists that doesn't create stability. And they're often destabilizing forces for society. And that could be good or bad, but to ask an artist to provide like a stable home, this, especially like a genius, this is very, very, very complicated. It's just low probability. You know, there's certainly people who can do it and have done it, and I think it's a really great and beautiful thing to aspire to. Do you think you'll have children one day?
Yeah, and I hope I'll be able to give them stability. But yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Same. Yeah. It's possible. I think every second just has to be precious, and I think it cuts all the bullshit out, you know? Like, I'm sure we can both recognize in our processes time wasted. And I guess the question becomes if that time wasted is essential to a productive book, you know? Like, is that the negative space of being productive? Is time wasted and frivolousness the way to make something great? Probably not. That sounds like another excuse.
Well, yeah, I think you have to look up for every minute and like ask yourself, like, is that part of my process? Is that necessary? So I think there's a few minutes of like me doing nothing that are important, and there's a lot that are really not important.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? Like, you could kind of get romantic and say, well, it's in those moments of doing nothing that the idea actually came to me.
Right.
But then you meet people who are just complete workhorses, and you're like, yeah, they don't need that, apparently. So I'm not so certain that's true, you know?
Yeah, well, it's yeah, it depends also like what's your what you're looking for. Like, most of my stories, they come to my mind when I walk. So if I cannot walk anymore, well, I won't have any stories.
So if you had no legs, you wouldn't be able to make comics.
Well, I guess I would like roll myself on the wheelchair all around Montreal.
Okay, so it is essential, yeah, for your process to take a walk. That's not a frivolous thing, but it is from the outside, the way we view productivity is interesting. So I don't know if many people would call walking productive, but I would call it positive consumption.
Right.
In other words, like, if you want positive production, you have to be positively consuming. So you should watch the right films. Right. You should read the right books. You should walk. You should be in nature, and, like a recipe. Too often that recipe of proper consumption is ignored. And it actually makes me think of the fact, like, I don't even read comics that much anymore. And even when I made them, it's almost like I would fill that up or something, and I didn't need to. But do you find yourself reading a lot of comics?
Now and then. Yeah, I get phases where I want to break what I like and like put myself in somebody else's mind artistically. I do it a lot with drawing, like not like films but like I used to really dislike Berserk, like really not attracted by that, and I end up reading the 21 first mangas in like maybe 6 months, and I'm not like a fan of it, but I'm really into it, and I'm glad I've learned to appreciate it, and but yeah, after that I could like not read a comic for 6 months or something. So it just most of the time I will start reading stuff or consuming stuff I'm not used to when I'm not producing art. But the moment I'll start like really working on a comic, I'll cut pretty much everything and just let in a few things, like a Howard Hawk movie and a Dragon Ball manga, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, Dragon Ball Z seems very important.
Yeah.
In your world.
Yeah, I love the excited to be alive it is. It's like...
Yeah, that's one way to put it. I've never thought about that. There is a excitement even when they're in pain, even when they bleed enthusiastically.
Yeah, they love action. Like Sangoku does it all the time. He's like, no, let him alive so we can fight him again. It's like,
yeah, they almost have like a environmental understanding of their ecosystem where they're constant. No one is like really dying.
No,
everyone's growing together. Everyone's fighting again. In fact, when I was young, that's why I just stopped watching it, because I like finality, and I like, oh, this person's dead.
Yeah.
But the gimmick of marketing became overt, where it was like, oh, they just have to make more of these episodes.
Yeah.
And I've never read the manga, so I can't speak to that. But aesthetically, obviously, it's an enormous influence on anyone who I feel like anyone who watched it. Like, I have comics where I didn't even realize I was making a Dragon Ball Z moment. Just like coming down fast onto the earth and hitting the stones, and then it just like rising and settling in that kind of way.
Yeah, well, Dragon Ball to me is what Justice League and Avengers should be. Is just like honestly, like Iron Man with his big red armor and Hulk in green. I just want them to be super fucking excited to fight. I don't want them to see the other things. Like
you think they're like too empathetic? Like they understand the opposite side too much while fighting or something?
Yeah, they're too complicated. Like, that's not True. Why you want to see muscular people in like colorful tights. Like, to me, it's so unappealing. All those really dramatic stories with superheroes. I mean, I'm just gonna read Dostoevsky if I want a drama. Like, I don't fucking need my Marvel comic to be dramatic like that.
That's interesting. Yeah,
I just wanted to be exciting, and happy to like fucking fight.
Yeah, from a Star Wars perspective, this is a very interesting topic. I don't know if you care about Star Wars, but when I was young,
not as much, but I'm listening.
It was super important to me when I was young, the trilogy. Like, that world, for whatever reason, is just so attractive. And as things entered their downward spiral, now there's 9 films and all these TV shows, the kind of mythological structure in which things are forces of nature give way, and there's a psychological element to the first 3 films too, but give way to this weird kind of like moral complexity and moral relativism that kind of just like it loses its whole charge. The films definitely lose what makes them unique, and then you just find yourself watching them for the set pieces and the characters and the aesthetics, but the world itself feels like much less, what would you say, like nothing is at stake.
Right.
That's how I view it.
Well, I remember of course I was a kid, but I don't know if I was a kid watching any other movie today, how I would feel, but I can talk from my experiences. I just really felt like they were really small in that whole universe, and like, just how are they gonna make it?
That's true, yeah. And then as you expand the universe, I don't know, they make these like convenient connections to make people happy, and then you're like, well, why are these people knowing each other in this universe that's infinitely large? And suddenly the world gets claustrophobic, and your imagination shuts down.
Yeah.
But it seems like the typical modern consumer is not really interested in imagining the space between the panels, I guess I would put it in a comics metaphor. Like,
yeah,
that's the best part of comics. It sounds like ridiculous, but the fact that you get to imagine the jump from that panel to the next, without that, the medium it has no appeal. And that's why, like, I don't even know if I would consider like a one panel comic a comic. I don't know if that can exist.
Yeah, I guess so. It is, but
it's a drawing.
Yeah. Well,
for me, it's relational. I guess, like, if you think speech bubbles makes a thing a comic, that's one thing, but it's really a relational thing.
Yeah. Well, yeah, you want a sequence.
Yeah, it's just too. It's ridiculous alternative Japanese stuff from the 70s where it's just like Dada comics where it's 2 images that have nothing to do with each other next to each other, but you still are working. Your brain is working desperately to make this thing cohesive.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I've been so disconnected from like it's been done now. Sometime, of course, I will take a look at it, but it's beyond me not interesting. I know it sounds like cliche to say that, but
well, maybe it's interesting, but maybe you're just not interested in it at the moment. And
yeah, we went to see Avatar 2, my girlfriend and I.
the way of the water or the way of water, whatever. Yeah.
I mean, and don't get me wrong, it's pretty, it's beautiful. I really like the douchebag soldiers that become Avatar. Like they have all that military gear, but they're blue and angelic. Like they look like my orcs from Orc Gym, I thought. But
you just see Orc Gym everywhere.
It's 3 hours and 15 minutes, and it's literally the same story we see in a Netflix movie that's 1 hour and 15 minutes.
Yeah, I refuse to watch.
Yeah.
I refuse to watch. Not out of some great moral stance. It's just, I'm going to die. And 3 hours is actually a long time.
Oh, yeah. I fall asleep a few times. Like, not like deep sleep, but like for a moment, I was like, oh, I'm not watching it.
Yeah, your brain just shut off.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no. Well, it's funny though. A film is like you said that is the. It sounds like film is more inspiration, or at least moving images, animation as well, is more inspirational to you than comics, right? In terms of informing it.
They come from like different influences, of course. Like the drawing aspect is really important for me. Like I really love to draw, and I love drawings. I think I'm a drawing nerd. Like I know a lot about drawing history, like, and I care a lot about in any drawing field. But so I consume a lot of comics that I don't even read because I think they're terrible. But I really like the way that knee is drawn, that hand is drawn, that hair is drawn, that composition. So I have like a bunch of comics I've never read. Like most comics I've never read them. Then movies, I think the story structure and like the naturalistic aspect, the way people act, the way people behave, I find their logic resembles more my reality. So especially older movies, like French New Wave or like 70s movies, like from guys like Don Siegel, and older movies like John Ford and Howard Hawks. There's just a way where they tell the story through the characters, and you hear that all the time. Like there will be like a YouTube video, storytelling, telling your stories through characters, and then you fucking read their story, and it's just like, their characters just doesn't feel real. Like maybe the events come from the characters, but it's just like the way they behave is not something I can relate to. Well, it's not something that feels like a human being. Like, and that's like very like subtle, and you can argue about it forever with someone. Most of the time you need to watch the movie and like pause the movie and say like the way he says that sentence is just not relatable. Like, but I find I don't read comics that have what I'm looking for in the way people behave. So other than a few, very few.
So your goal with Orc Gym would be to make a humanized orc in some sense, a relatable orc.
Funny. Yeah, it's exactly it. It's like I have these two intentions are completely opposite. I have like this, I want to make a really epic poster with all those characters that feel like just a big fetish with Dragon Ball inspirations of like muscles are fun, action is fun. But then like ground them into something that feels like your body at the gym. Yeah.
Interesting. So when is the Kickstarter going up?
Ideally, mid-February. And if it's not mid-February, it's close to that date. It's just we're looking to have a lot of people who sign up first. So when it goes out, they can like take the cheaper packages right away. It's just a strategy. So we end up being like having a lot of subscribers really fast.
Sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how far along are you on the book right now?
Oh, I just have 7 pages drawn, but I'm writing the whole thing, and I'm pretty advanced in the writing right now. So
okay, so you write a proper script kind of first, and then you get into it.
Yeah, I go from thumbnail to script. I wouldn't like read anyone my script because I only myself can find in it. But like I have every detail figured out. It's just like it's either in thumbnail or either in writing.
And you don't get bored by knowing where it's going when you sit down to draw the whole thing?
Change. I know it will change.
Okay. Because I always had a problem with that. Like knowing where it was going and drawing to that always made me kind of like I'm just like being handed a script, even though I wrote it myself in some ways, you know?
Yeah, it used to do that to me, but then I did a 200-page comics that goes nowhere, and I love drawing in it. I work really hard for it, and I cannot make anyone read it. So,
which one is that?
It's called Backstab. It's vampires and boxing, Frankenstein, MMA, surfing.
Then you're saying it's just unreadable.
It's unreadable. You'll be
you had too much fun, maybe.
Too much fun, exactly. It's just like all the characters, like you don't really know where they're going with their problems and their stories. I care about. It's like I could make like if I wanted to finish that story, I should make like 10,000 pages because I've started too many ideas in it. It's just really. It gives me like my if I start reading it, trying to figure out what I can do to save it, I will like fall asleep. Like I'm just like fuck that shit.
Got a good cover. That's all that matters.
Yeah. There's this part of me that sometimes like, okay, I have to let it out, and but like, yeah, I just can't yet. To me, it's like such a Frankenstein that like.
What's going on here? You're trying to get some board game work on BoardGameGeek.com. It's one of my favorite websites.
Yeah, it's not working really well. Yeah. When I was a kid, I was playing Dungeons and Dragons, and I discovered Guy Davis through his artwork for RPGs, and I've been fantasizing about doing artwork for role-playing games, even if I don't play it anymore. And but yeah, it's not really working for now.
It's tough, you know. I have board game night every night, every Thursday night. Tonight being one of them, and there is one artist that comes to mind who is unique. And when he makes shit, I'm like, man, I got to get that game because I think his style's great for what it is. His name is Kyle Farron, I believe.
Okay.
I hope to have him on the podcast. He's worth looking into. He did this game called Root, and that's all he does. I think it's super cool that, you know, like he can make a living just doing that.
Yeah.
But I think he's like probably really into it, you know? Like I feel like you're either super into board games or you're not. You know, it's like a pretty extreme culture. And
yeah, it's an engaging experience that demands work. So
I'm trying to imagine you doing a game. I think I can see it.
Yeah, I'd love to. Well, it's like, I mean, role-playing game will be easier because it's just a bunch of illustrations.
Yeah, that's kind of boring. You mean like cards? Like just a bunch of...
Yeah, or a book with like a Dungeon Dragon book, you know?
Oh.
Like, let me draw those moment where you meet the monster in the dungeon and stuff.
That's cool. Yeah, no, I like the games like all the little pieces and little intimate moments of like construction and wood. Yeah.
Well, I play Catan with my girlfriend and our friends sometimes. And yeah, we're always ending up like playing with their little woods, and like it's a beautiful game, even if it's really minimalist.
Oh, yeah, that's my favorite kind. Just those abstract games. But I'll keep that in mind. I intend to make a board game one day.
Well, let me know.
But a real, like a board game, I think, not a card game. I'd like to see more unique illustration in that domain.
Yeah.
It's kind of, there's like a generic realism that often gets put onto the games. Almost like Marvel and DC comics, honestly.
Yeah.
So I'll keep that in mind. And this time, do you have a joke for me or no? Did you find a joke?
Oh, yeah. I actually was thinking about it. I forgot. Wait, I have a few jokes hanging.
All right, let's go.
Well, okay. It's two artists talking at the end of a bar. Do you know what they're talking about?
At the end of a what?
Well, at the back of the bar.
All right, two artists at the back of the bar. And I have to guess what they're talking about?
Yeah.
I mean, this seems impossible.
Well, we don't care. It's just two artists.
No, I don't have it. I don't have a guess. Two artists back of the bar.
That's my answer. That's the joke.
Okay. Did you write that joke?
No, but like, okay, I have another one the same type. They're my kind of joke. What's the difference between a pizza and an artist?
No, I already know this one because I think you can insert it. A pizza can feed a family of 4.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that joke can be, you could throw anything in there.
Yeah.
But it makes more sense when applied to an artist.
Right.
All right, I'll take that. All right, so people should sign up for the Kickstarter to know when it's coming out.
Yeah.
And where would they do that?
In the link in my bio on Instagram. So if you I'll Gofa Instagram on Google, you'll easily find it.
It's Gofa.
Yeah, Gofa.
Okay, that's important that I know how to pronounce that. Al Gofa. All right, good talking to you. One day we'll play basketball.
Yeah, can't wait. That'll be fun.
All right, have a good day.
Yeah, cheers. Thank you.
Later.
Thanks for tuning in. Music by Dory Bavarsky and Mingja Chen. Next up, we have Matt Houston.